We seem greatly dissatisfied, though we live in the best of times. Never had we had our environment satisfy our material needs with so little work. We can communicate nearly anywhere with anyone, close to instantaneously. We can physically travel to anywhere on the earth, about within a day. We have a reliable food supply and can expect excellent medical care in case of injury. Children and mothers can survive childbirth at greater rates than ever. Yet in this paradise, where we have a fantasy that all our ancestors could not even dream of, we are miserable. There is not enough food, accolades, attention, stories, drugs, or sex to fill the seemingly bottomless pit inside ourselves. We have a mountain before us left to traverse if mankind is to make it to the next apex, or surely we will fall. We cannot go back down from where we came, regress. We cannot pause where we are, to remain static. We can only overcome the obstacles before us. If we can reach the top, I just imagine what sights we might see. We have no idea what we are. Are we just a collection of atoms, a biological robot, a divine creation, a fallen yet redeemable individual, or just another cog in the machine? An animal, chasing our next dopamine high? These and many more questions are enough to crush anyone's spirit. Simply put, we cannot act or do to survive. Well, more simply put, we must act or do to survive. But we also have to have a point, some meaning. If it all means nothing, then there is no point, there is no purpose, there is nothing to work to. Survival and meaning, this is who we are. It may be natural to think survival is more important, but for the human animal, meaning seems to be. If you were the last person on Earth with a lifetime supply of sustenance, books, and movies, how would you feel? Year after year, just you. Would you try to record your existence for whatever aliens may visit one day? Go mad? And if there's no point to your existence, no meaning, then you don't need to survive. A dog does not need meaning. It is all survival, whether looking for rats in the wild or being part of the human pack for table scraps. Our meaning is partly eroded, well, partly evolved from our past environments, the environments of our ancestors. And the environment, with recent medical advances, has changed for women greatly. And since it has changed for women, it has changed for men. We no longer have roles for men or women, and with that loss of meaning, we have lost ourselves. Where once we would have been slotted into a role of a hunter or gatherer, a father and a mother, and there was no question of anything else. That's all there was to do. And society and our biology, our psychology, our history, our culture was all geared to those roles, because that is all there was to survive. And I think we did get very good at those roles. And now that's probably what's hurting us a bit. We only have a finite time on Earth. We are constrained in many ways. Women's fertile years are when they are young, and for men and women it seems to be best to raise children when young, because they do take a lot of energy. This maternal energy, if not directed toward children, appears to be spreading out into the rest of society. The political discourse has changed from how do we give the reasonable amount of liberty to the individual to how can we protect the innocent groups in our society. And that is a fundamental change from individual liberty, a reasonable, maximized amount to protect the innocent groups. And these two are at odds, because you cannot protect and give freedom at the same time. Certainly not in proportionate amounts. Women have been pushed to trade in their childbearing years for hedonism and or an education. However, one can pursue pleasure at any time, and one can pursue education at any time as well. But fertility is only a brief time, like a flower blooming in the spring. As a society, we need to start treating marriage seriously. I do not know what form this will take, but if we continue, marriage will eventually lose all meaning, as it has been losing more and more meaning as the years have gone by. Marriage is important because it is a true crucible for parents. The fire can hone them and turn them into better people. But it is hot, and our nature is to turn away from difficulty. We need to stop treating college education as an extended adolescence and focus not on a degree, but on actual skills. If we focus on what we know and what we can do, we can learn for the rest of our lives. It is foolish to stop rewarding education after 4 or 8 years, just to go to the attainment of receiving the certification of a bachelor's or a master's or a PhD, and then you're done. This will allow parents to stay in the loop in education and not be sidetracked by child rearing. With our economy and jobs changing so quickly, this will prepare people and keep them up to the demands of our increasingly shifting economy. This will also allow us to dispense with the foolish notion that each discipline is entirely separate from all the others. Because really, you can't just know one thing. You have to know multiple things. And I think most people currently that are working probably have 4 or 5 different actual job skill sets. Whereas before, you might have conceivably gone through your life in one position, one job, doing that and getting better at it. And maybe some minor technological innovation would change it, but it wasn't such as today. I don't mean for these to be necessarily legal or just society pushes. Writing law policy that will affect a state or an entire country is quite an undertaking. And I don't think that we can go right to that sort of thing. We need to first start having the conversation, kind of as I've laid out, that these are kind of the fundamentals. That women are wasting their best years in college. If you look at it, women are fertile generally from, let's say 18 for legal age of consent. 18 to 26, I believe, is the most fertile time. But of course, that can go up to like 32, 33. I think even 34 is okay. And if you want, multiple children, which I think is actually really important for children and for families to have multiple children, because if you have one, you don't get to see the different personalities interact and grow up together and get used to each other. It kind of reminds me of how a lot of people on the left are surprised by Trump and that sort of person. But you should know someone like him, someone that's similar to him, the uncle that goes out with you to help you buy your first used car because he knows all the tricks that they use to cheat you. And so he's going to help you get the best deal. And that's why, don't these people go to Walmart or Target or some sort of store like that where you just see a whole swath of people and how they interact? And certainly Trump is a unique individual, but that just sort of person, that negotiator, that bargainer, that businessman, that's that personality is not unique. You see that in all facets of life, I would imagine, to some degree. So I do think it's important to have families, keep marriage as something special, perhaps even sacred, since that seems to be the environment that children are best in. And also not having just one child, but multiple children, to have a full spectrum that you see of, well, I guess you could even use the word diversity. Diversity of personalities and attitudes, temperaments that interact. And like I said, I do not intend this to be necessarily something legal, but I was hoping to actually start a conversation to move toward a goal of some sort. Because right now, in our general society, there doesn't seem to be a goal. And we do need to, I think, push for our education system to change. I don't think anyone is under dispute about that, but it needs to take the lifelong learning into account, not just getting a degree and then moving out to a job. But this is never going to stop now, particularly with our long lifespans. If you look at a woman that decides to come out of high school, let's say for instance, and she gets married and she has children. Let's say she has 4 children. So from 20, every 2 years, would be at least 8 years. So she would be 28 years old. And of course, she would want to stay with those children while they were still young, let's say to about 6. So let's add on 4 years for the last one. So from, what does it? No, wait a second. 4 times 2 would be 8. So 28, and then we add on 4 more years. So that would be 32. Well, the average lifespan for a woman is like 78, 79, or 80. I mean, she has quite literally more than half her life to go. And why can't she go to school then? Especially when the kids are older. They don't require, they'll be in school. They'll be doing things. I just don't see why it has to be, no, you have to do this right away. And if we change the educational system, she might even be able to take some classes in something, a skill that she had, that she wanted to perfect or just work on a little bit. Why can't you take a class each semester? Why is that so heavily penalized right under our current system? That's what I don't understand. I mean, maybe in high school she enjoyed software programming, but she wants to make the most of her, younger years and have her children. Why can't she continue to take some software coding classes while her children, are still young? Yeah, I don't think doing a full-time schedule is really doable. But why do we penalize people if they can't do a full-time schedule? I mean, most normal people also, even if they didn't have kids, would be working. Okay, so why can't they take 3 classes? Why does it have to be so rigid and inflexible and completely at odds with how we live our lives? Education isn't, it's almost like a job, really, that you pay for. A job that you pay them to go to. Anyways, okay, so women's young fertile years, those need to be maximized. Certainly if they want to have children, that's when they need to do it. And I would agree with men as well, having children a little bit when you're younger. Not as crucial, obviously, for men, but still, kids take a lot of energy. And it's, you don't want to be 50 years old or even 45 years old, with a 1-year-old or 6-month-old or something. I mean, that's especially little kids, they require a lot of energy, a lot of time, a lot of fun, but a lot of energy to keep up with. So women's young needs to make sure they have children as well as men, but we also need to treat marriage as sacred, something important, something that cannot be easily dissolved, something that we as a society need to support people in continuing to do, because marriage is not always fun, but it's important that it not just be treated as as a commodity, exactly as like a cell phone or just a business contract, because you are raising children, probably our most important resource for the future, because there is no future without children. If nobody had any children, that's the end. And, I really want to do anything that would support children, but not support them I want to support them, so I'm just going to do something even though it's useless. No, we want to make sure that the things that we do are useful, and having an actual family that stays together is good for children overall. Of course, there are exceptions, but you're not going to get through life perfect. There's no, one fits all size for everything. But generally speaking, families that stay together, better for kids. And so we want to also then revamp the education system so that it is more conducive for raising children, and that women can have the option of raising children, having a family, continuing their education if they're able to, in a small way, but then when they're done, go ahead and pursuing the rest of their life, which will be more, half of their life or even more possibly that they will have to. Why can't they do something? Why do we have to have such a structured education system that is completely inflexible and doesn't fit with people's lives, even with men's lives? I mean, if you worked in a manufacturing plant for 10 years and then the jobs went away and you weren't able to find another manufacturing plant job because everybody else was looking for one, why can't you transition? Why does it have to be so inflexible? Again, you have to get a bachelor's. You have to spend that 4 years. I want to put the emphasis on actual skills and what you actually know, rather than just you have a BS. Anyways, please give any feedback below, any comments below, and especially if you have any actual structural legal systems that might be applied. Like, one idea that I have for the education system that would help is just to end accreditation. No accreditation. People have to go to the school of their choice, and there's this whole rigmarole of the accreditation system goes away. That not only will make it cheaper and quicker, but if there is a bad, education little subsection that crops up, people aren't going to go there. They'll turn their money away, and it will die off. So I think ending the stranglehold that the universities have on their accreditation would greatly aid school growth and more responsiveness, rather than you have to come to them, rather than they having to make an environment of something useful that you really want to go to. I like that much better for the public and consumers, that they have to make something useful that you actually want to pay for, rather than something you feel like you have to pay for. Comments below. Thank you for your time. You have a good day.